Hello everybody and welcome to probably the second most requested tier list of the bunch here. So that'd be a one vision weapon and other crap you can stick in your hand tier list. I mean, you know the idea. I'm assuming if somebody's here, they know what one vision is, so we're not going to have to go over that. So you may notice not all of these weapons seem like they're going to be in different categories. Basically, since it's a whole pain in the neck to get a JPEG of every single weapon type, I went through and kind of fit stuff that looked vaguely like what the category might be, since each of these weapons has different side grades and whatever else, and I didn't really feel like going and trying to get matching exact same resolution JPEGs of every single friggin' thing inside one vision itself. That would be a bit of a pain in the neck. So, in no particular order, we're just gonna kind of go down these here. So, first things first, what do the tiers mean? So S tier, obviously, going to be the top of the pile, going to be stuff that's utterly dominant. It actually, a lot of that stuff is going to be the stuff that's incredibly good for the solo run. A tier is just going to be kind of good overall, definitely top of the pile, something to watch out for when you see it on the other side. B tier is pretty average, just kind of whoever's running it, it'll do the job, but it's not super amazing. C tier is usually going to be that it has some drawbacks or other reasons not to use it. And D tier, off the top of my head, I can only think of one thing that I'd actually want to put there, but either way, you know, One Vision's weapon balance feels like it's in a pretty good place these days, so let's go ahead and get this thing going. Alright. First of all, basic one-handed swords. These are going to have a pretty nice suite of finishers. You got, basically, you've got your damage scaling, you've got your multi-hit, you've got your utility moves on there. The weapons themselves get a nice bit of bonus damage scaling. For anyone unfamiliar, basically, bonus damage is your post-armor calculation, so it's got a high maximum damage, but it may have a harder time getting past armor. But a lot of one-handed swords don't seem to necessarily have that problem, so if you've got a matching or better skill than the other guy, you're going to be doing just fine. So yeah, very solid, very reliable. Lacking some of the, you know, better, higher end damage there, but either way, very good overall. Now, next we got the 1H, 2Hs, which I'm actually going to put down in B tier. So they're more of a utility thing. Basically, the Bastard Swords are, you get the one-hander, finisher set and all that kind of thing. You can keep the same skill and transfer it over. Most of the time, it's more of a utility role, and their actual available options are a little bit odd sometimes. The Nefrit still feels like a bit of an odd one in my book, so your poison sword that Martin carries around. Because I really like that thing with its poison hit in vanilla, even though it was a pain in the neck to actually get a hold of. It's easier to get a hold of now, I believe, but actually, come to think of no, that thing's still a pain to get a hold of, isn't it? Either way, you know, kind of preferred its older version, but oh well. Just feels like a lot of the Bastard Swords are a little meh. I mean, the actual finisher set on the one-handed swords is still really reliable, and some of the elemental weapons that they get towards the end game, and especially going into the post game, are going to be nice and versatile. So it retains the versatility, retains the accuracy. I actually forgot to mention that for the basic one-handed swords, just excellent accuracy across the board. But either way, it's going to go there. And actually, basic two-handers are going to go in A tier as well. Again, same idea as these ones, except better. And I mean, basically, it's just a straight upgrade from here to here. Not as good finishers on the two-handed ones, but the sheer raw damage of those things definitely makes up for that. And also, the basic variants are still retaining that same accuracy. However, there's a lot of ways that you can potentially boost your melee accuracy to 100%, which is why the big old chonkers, the friggin' like Dragon Slayer and stuff like that, are going into S tier. So the side-graded two-handers are just ridiculous for one-shot kill potential in the endgame. They've got, I believe, the greatest damage scaling in the entire mod at this point. And yeah, they are definitely hard to hit with. I mean, negative like 50% accuracy is insane, but at the same time, you know, one shot. So it's nice. It's a very nice feeling thing. If you know how to use them right, they can be extremely effective. If you screw up with them, though, you're going to feel it twice as hard. I still feel like they're an S tier, but we're going to put them up there. Next for S tier, we've got basic axes. The one-handed variant with the breach effect. Definite S tier there. So yeah, I mean, breach on hit is already fantastic. They don't have that accuracy penalty. They've got good scaling. They've got good penetration, and they're still in one hand. They still retain some of the relative lightness of the weapon. So, good, dependable, and potentially very game-changing if you get that proc. Especially handy if you've got any 100% hit moves, which, I mean, so many classes have that at this point that, yes, of course you do. So, great for that. So, especially great around, like, soldiers and things like that. Actually, even for dragoons, they can be insane, because you basically go in, you get your Dragon Slayer, Beast Slayer, or whatever else, plus the breach. Whatever touches them next, they're dead. Next, we have the side-graded one-handed swords here. So these are going to be the ones that are coming in with a RT delay. I kind of feel like they're a C tier. I just really prefer the breach effect. The RT delay is nice when it happens, and you can guarantee that it happens. They do gain a significant amount of weight that has changed over time. I personally just know that between the two of them, I would definitely take the 20% bonus damage over let's slow that guy down. I would prefer them to be dead. So we'll go ahead and put that there. Then we have the two-handed variant of the slowdown effect, which would also go in C tier, and then we have the two-handed variant of the breach effect, which I'm putting in A tier because having access to like a shield or a parrying dagger or something like that, I feel is a lot more effective than the actual bonus damage equation there. If you're going for true maximum damage, then you go for the the greatsword here, but either way, that can kind of go in either direction, to be completely honest. All right, next up for one-handed amazingness, the basic mace. So these are going to be light with a stun effect. Very solid, not really great on the maximum damage, but very reliable, pretty consistent damage against most armor types. And again, stun effect, which can make a massive difference on its own. The two-handed version of that is just going to go in A tier. Similar thing. It's just hammers don't necessarily scale as well as two-handers do. So, and I want to state that I'm not really trying to overvalue the effect of scaling damage. It's nice, it's definitely not the end-all be-all, and the stun effect is awesome. I just mean the effect of having a shield or parrying dagger, like the defense bonuses of having multiple different options. Like, for example, axe plus hammer. If something can be breached and stunned, they're basically doomed if you're going for a dual-wield build. Whereas just having a hammer do slightly more damage, maybe not necessarily worth it. So that's kind of there. You have the next one here, which is actually going in B tier, but it's kind of situational. So those are going to be the Redeemer hammers. They have a better name. I think Crucible hammers is what he called them. Basically, the hammer line, the side-graded hammers towards the end game get the Balder effect. So that means that they do a whole bunch of extra damage against undead. Very, very good in Palace of the Dead, with a bizarre caveat in that, for whatever reason, a lot of them still retain the kind of divine thing to them, which means that that bonus damage basically gets nullified in its most useful state. I'm not sure what that was all about. I thought it was because the Redeemer was basically the divine version. I believe it still showed that effect on other hammers. I'm not sure if that's been fixed. Bear in mind, it has been a while since I tested that particular one. It's very useful in undead maps, but like in Palace of the Dead, where you'd think to use it the most, it's going to have some problems. And then you have the heavy hammer, which comes with a knockback effect. Again, B tier. Knockback effect is great. I just feel like you can guarantee knockback through other means. Again, you can have the chance of a knockback on this, and it saves you a skill slot, or you can go for the two-hander with Mighty Impact and, probably do a lot more. It's not terrible. It's there, and not to mention the finisher suite on hammers is also a lot more versatile than the two-hander, so you got that out there as well. All right. Next, we got the katanas, the Eastern swords, which are definitely a lot more interesting than they were in vanilla. So basic katanas are going to be represented by this little pokeboy right here. They're going to go in B tier. Actually, okay, they are going in B tier because it's TP reduction. It's a great effect. They have a luck bonus, so sword and board definitely the way to go for those. Low maximum damage, but that luck bonus means that they're very good in a defensive role. They're not necessarily going to be as sexy as some of the other options on here, but still very reliable. I'm only putting them on here because they do rely on lock a decent bit. Again, it's a little bit harder to carve out a niche for them. You know what? Actually, no. We're going to put that in A tier so that we can put the basic two-handed katanas in B tier for that same reason. Just because having the ability to get a shield or parrying dagger, I feel puts these up in A, now that I think about it. The side-graded variants, though, I feel are a bit of a flip. So, side-graded dual-wield katanas and things like that, I feel like there's other things that are better for, being dual-wielded. They have a negative luck bonus to make it less likely to crit, which makes them more reliable in that circumstance, and they also... I believe they still have their parry bonus. Let me double-check real quick, because that's actually changed a decent bit, I believe. Okay, no, they do not have a parry bonus anymore. Well, then, yeah, they're definitely staying in B tier. I mean, they're good defensive weapons and things like that. It's just that, yeah, I feel like there's better stuff that you can be dual-wielding. So there's that. They give you a nice avoidance bonus, though, instead of that parry bonus. So, potentially, very good for ninjas and things like that, because they can't necessarily have all their full equipment option, or full defensive options anyway. But, they're not super threatening, is the thing. That said, though, and this is going to be a contentious one, I think side-graded 2HKs are one of the best weapons. So, why is that? Okay. They have reduced damage to the basic 2HKs, and they lose the luck bonus. Fine. Let me double-check that luck bonus is actually still gone, because I swear that has changed a few times. Okay, they don't even lose the luck bonus, so we're not even losing out there. Basically, the deal is, let's compare the Cane Blade as an example, because it's what I have the cursor on right now. What they're losing is 4 attack penetration and 4% damage scaling. At the same time, the weight goes down by about, let's see, goes by about, 25%. So 25 to 30% weight reduction, plus it costs, looks like 25% less to actually swing, plus you have more or less a finisher whenever you want it. So the draw-out ability is pretty much the equivalent of Sparagmos from the vanilla game. You do only get to use it once, but it's oftentimes really decisive. So I feel like it's just a very, very effective kind of trick weapon. Yes, it can be kind of situational, but I feel like it's just absolutely dominant when it's used right. Alright, actually, come to think of it, I should really be using that more in the solo run once we do the second part of that. So I've been meaning to finish off Coda for the solo run for a while now, and yeah, well, eventually I'll get to it. Too many projects, too much stuff going on. Moving on. Alright, spell books, look, they're good, I just feel like they're in D tier. I mean... I feel like every time that I criticize spellbooks, I get criticized back, but it's just, they're awkward to use, their range is weird, meditate is nice, but also not necessarily as necessary as it would have been in vanilla. Higher end spellcasters, sure. At the same time, you can just use an item for the same effect. They're not exactly super expensive. Their finisher suite is very handy if you ever can actually unlock it because of how awkward they are to use. So I just think they're kind of awkward. They're good for what they do. I mean, they're good for spellcasters. It would be nice to, to have an easier access to their stuff. I kind of feel like if they had access to counterattack and still, still could do melee range whacks with them, that they'd still kind of be higher tier in my book. But again, I prefer weird challenge run nonsense. For its job of just being the defensive spellcasting totem kind of deal, it's fine. It's doing its job. All right, next up we got binding daggers. So just your basic, it's gonna hurt him in the leg. Stabby swords, A tier. If bind goes off, it can change the entire fight. Very handy, useful on a lot of classes. I mean, not really much more to say there. Spellcasting daggers are a B tier. Still good. You're not really gonna use them for stabbing. You get a free use of spell strike with them, plus a mind bonus. Is it enter mind bonus these days? Yes, stuff has changed so much that I can't even remember what a lot of random stuff does. Okay, it is still mind these days. So, silence effect on them is nice. So they are useful. Like if you combine both types of daggers, it's actually a really solid setup. Silence tends to also get viewed above stuff like stun for removal for the AI's purposes for some reason. Actually, because I forgot the I think because I forgot the silence effect, we're going to put it up here. It's like silent. Actually, no, it's going to stay in B. Silence is good. It's not necessarily as game-changing as like a melee unit suddenly being out of the fight, because a lot of the times those casters might still have other options available. Or somebody might go in and fix them up before they have their next turn, since casters don't tend to be very fast either. But again, that's just personal hot take on that one. I feel like they're pretty equivalent, but, you know, this one has to be a bit higher. Alright, next up, casting staves. A tier on the basic casting staff. Like, saves you a lot of money to have spellcraft on a stick, plus it makes you better at doing that thing overall. You know, it's basically a magic gun, so that's fine. Now, I personally like fighting cudgels. I'm just going to put the mace for fighting cudgels here. But I personally love using those, and especially use them on, like, Terror Knights and things like that for no apparent reason. It's just funny to see somebody go completely crazy with a whacking stick. It's arguably kind of, you know, suboptimal, but whatever. Parry bonus is nice on them. They got okay damage. It's not blowing anything out of the park. It's more a funny meme weapon in my book, which that's perfectly okay. It's a good defensive option for characters that need it. And again, the finisher suite for cudgels is nice. Unfortunately, though, when it comes to the fighting cudgels, aside from clerics, not everybody can make use of the augments as well. So that's kind of why they're down in C tier. Alright, next up we have the effect darts, which are going to go in C tier as well. They've got their niche purposes. It's just, you know, it's kind of RNG and oddly specific circumstances where they really get to shine. When they do shine, it's great. They're more of a trick weapon, less than an actual, you know, direct weapon. Something like a Charm Dart or a Petra Dart can definitely do the job fantastically. The healing darts are pretty nice to give a healing option to your, you know, to some of your characters that wouldn't otherwise have a healing option. I would be really interested to do a dart-only run at some point, just to kind of get some better understanding for, you know, maybe some of the better tricks using the darts. It's just a lot of those effects can potentially be achieved in more consistent ways, so it may not be your first choice when it comes to a lot of those effects. So, for example, like putting on a lobber would be better than using I believe it was the wyvern dart or something like that. But it's there as an option, and it's free, so, you know, it's nice. Damage darts, I don't know. I guess they're a C. They're just kind of... The damage-dealing blow darts, I feel like, are not necessarily as amazing, but that said, the cursed blow dart is also ridiculously strong, so... Yeah, however you want to count that. Again, finisher set, pretty good on these things. I just don't feel like they're really blowing too much stuff away. Maybe I just haven't used them in a while, but let's go ahead and put them over there. Instruments, S tier. My goodness, they are so freaking good. Like, sticking somebody with instruments with a counterattack in the front row is a nice way to just win a lot of fights outright. Nothing more to say on that. Next up, pistols are... I'm going to say C tier. They're really good on Dragoons. Like, Pistol and Heavy Shield Dragoon is really strong. They're kind of meh for pretty much against everything else. So we're just going to put that over there. I feel like A tier on the rifles, you know, nice long range, nice big damage. They can't get deflected, so that's nice there. And Gunblade. It's a B tier weapon. Like, it's a two-hander, but it doesn't have the two-hander scaling. It's a pistol, but you gotta pay TP to use its bullets. It's a fun meme weapon. Like, it's not spectacular, it's not bad, it's just a cool, unique weapon that that Lendl gets. So that gets to go over there. Yeah, the fans, I kind of feel going D tier these days. They switched over to being a dagger, so, you know, their stuff's more accessible. But, again, I feel like a lot of those effects can just be gotten easier from other places. Okie doke. Next we got, what do we got here? Lobber. B tier. Nothing too much to say about it. It's the item lobber. What are you gonna do? All right. Spears. Okay. Now I love spears. I got a massive bias towards spears. Basic pokey spear, A tier. Really good on, for example, knights and things. Just have them running around with a tanky setup, just poking things from afar, making use of action skills the entire time. Good for slow units, good for poking, but not as heavy as the pikes. Pikes, like light pikes, are about the same place, I'd feel, where they're the same thing. There's one tile longer and got a little bit more of a speed penalty. Those are kind of situational. So we're just going to put them in more or less the same spot. Heavy spears, though, are absolutely amazing. So, yeah, heavy spears, so 2-tile, with the defensive bonuses that you'd expect off a spear, plus they have pretty reliable damage against most stuff, plus they still have the range, plus they can multi-hit, plus on a Terror Knight, like, the basic heavy spear is just utterly dominant. Like, throwing out a Lament of the Dead into a double poke with a augmented spear is just disgusting. They can potentially just make a little damage whirlpool with those things. Heavy pike, yeah, I mean, I guess it can. I guess heavy pike would probably go into A tier. It's the same thing. It's just a little more awkward to use. It's got its situations for sure, like warrior with heavy pike. Actually, yeah, no, warrior with mighty strike and heavy pike is pretty disgusting. They can pretty much snipe with a melee weapon. So yeah, that gets to go up there. All right. Next up, bow guns. Basic one-handed bow guns. C tier, not a lot of damage. The finisher suite is okay. It's mostly debuffs that you're looking for in that one. Not gonna hugely change a fight. A tier for the heavy crossbow. Just solid, dependable damage, good firing range, just great in a lot of situations. Rail bows are somewhere in the middle. It entirely depends what the deal is with the rail bow. They're great for spamming finishers because the finishers don't care about their straight line trajectory situation. The fact that they can fire through a lot of obstacles is kind of cool because they basically are using, from what I understand, they're using the kind of spear idea, except they will stop at the first thing that they hit. So kind of like the whip does. Maybe they are just using the whip properties. I don't know, but the first object that they hit, they'll stop at. So they're awkward to use normally, but you can use them with a shield, so they're situational, but they can be really strong. It's just that sometimes you just can't use them like you'd want to. So we're just going to go ahead and put that there. All right. Short bows... I mean, same thing as the basic light bow guns. They're a utility weapon. All three of these are just utilities. You have something in your offhand, whatever kind of weapons. Usually good for combining with Art of War and spamming those debuffs, but, you know, that's all situational. You can do it through other means as well. Those are just a nice, fast way to do it, so great for skirmishers, but not necessarily recommended for anyone else. Alright, next we got longbows. B tier, again, very kind of across the board average kind of situation. Can poison your arrows. Well, I say poison. You get stun and silence that you can put on your arrows. So that's good and dependable for shutting down units at long range. However, I feel like the siege bows kind of take the cake on that one. So, you know, you get way longer range. You just put silence on a siege bow. You fire that way the hell back at their cleric, and there you go. Suddenly they can't heal anymore. Good stuff. All right. Next we got whips. I don't know why I'm putting an A tier. It's S tier. Like, Armageddon is dumb powerful. Not to mention you can stack multiple different augments for all kinds of funny effects on these things. Great multi-hit move. Greatest AoE move in the game in my book. Yeah, S tier. Actually, screw it. We're putting it at the very top of S tier. It takes an exception to the I don't feel like resorting stuff rule. Okay. Next up, sidearms. Basic sidearms, A tier. Like all of the other skirmisher weapons down here, except they actually do damage, so they go up there. Heavy sidearms are going to go a little bit under that. I just feel like the shorter range limits their utility somewhat. Okay. let's see, claws. What do we got here? So there's 3 different types of claws. So these are going to be representing the stun claws. So stun claws are A tier. Just stun effect is so good on so many things. And yes, I realize that the basic Cestus, does it do stun these days? I don't know. One of these does stun, one of these does poison. It doesn't matter. The way that I put it for this thing is just this one with the pokey stuff does the poison. This one with the punchy stuff does the stun. Let me double check that it actually does that. I'm pretty sure that's how it goes here too. Ah, man. Years of covering the mod will do this to you, by the way. It's like, I don't remember what anything does anymore. Because every update just changes everything again. Yeah, so Leather Cestus is stun, Bronze Knuckles is poison. And then the last one here is going to, with the big old claws, is going to be the MP reduction. So, okay. Reasoning behind this. Stun and poison are great for their own effects. You can combine these up. They're just like have one of each on each hand. Love doing that. That's very reliable, even when you're not even doing damage. Just those 2 effects being thrown out in a single attack are enough to do a considerable amount of damage to something. Like, it both logistically and actual numbers-wise. The MP claws are ultra situational, but they still have really good damage scaling. A lot of them tend to have really good scaling on their finishers, and they tend to get better augments, whether intentionally or by accident. So that's going to be over there. Otherwise, I would have put them in D tier, because there have been some cases that I ran one just for its elemental damage, but it's just MP reduction is something you very rarely ever actually want to do, or are in a position to do. I mean, it's good for a ninja or something like that for shutting down a cleric, but they take so little MP to be able to heal that it's not necessarily going to have the effect that you want. Something like stunning or silencing or poisoning through so many other options. Like, it's supposed to be the magic equivalent of the katana there, where they're chopping off TP. But with TP, there's a big number that they got to reach up to, so that just reduces the amount that number is. In this thing's case, that MP is, again, technically regenerating at the same rate, they just don't need as much of it. It's easier to restore, other people can restore it for them, so kind of meh on that regard. Alright, so then there's 4 flavors of shields that are last on the list. First of all, light deflection shield, light parry shields, rather. S tier. I mean, they weigh very little. Their bonuses are fantastic. They work on so many units. Definite S tier there. Silencing shields, I feel, are in C tier. They've got, the wards have better magic resistance and things like that, so they can very easily round up several builds. They can very nicely round out stats, but the silencing effect is a little meh. Like, there's just easier ways to get it. You know, okay, we're going to put it in A tier because on more than one occasion I've seen that combined in certain interesting ways that it actually made a difference. Actually, no, I'm going to put it right back to C tier again, because then I keep thinking about all of the times that you got silence immunity and some random gremlin comes up and keeps trying to use it. So, no, that's going to stay in C tier. Damage reflection shields, I'm going to put in D tier. Yes, it was incredibly useful in the solo run, but in most circumstances, it's just so situational that, again, you're taking 5 times as much damage as you're giving back. It's not necessarily going to be worth it, as opposed to just getting a better shield. And then the heavy stun shields are going in A tier. Good damage, but they lose the knockback. So the knockback on the light shields, really, really good for insta-kills. The stun effect is nice, but it's not necessarily going to be a game changer. It's more of just an extra option in your tool belt. It has saved multiple runs on multiple occasions in my case, but, you know, it's just something that you got over there. It's not necessarily as reliable as the other options, but it is better than the silencing option down here. Alright, so, I think I'm pretty happy with this tier list. I think it looks pretty nice. Now, feel free to absolutely roast it in the comments. Have yourself a good one. Take care.